Hello, everybody. Welcome. I almost said to Infinite Horizon, but that would be misleading.
No,
Um,
yeah, not quite.
welcome to Ramblemancy. Thanks for being here, everybody. Hold on, excuse me while I situate myself. Um, so, apologies for being just a little bit late on the going live. Uh, today I've discovered that if Caitlin's not here, um, I don't remember to grab things like my headphones. Caitlin's the one with the checklist. So, uh, Caitlin, if you're here, I know you're not because you're playing D&D, but this is your fault. Um,
Always blame the person who's not here.
exactly.
That's the way of it.
Oh man.
Exactly. All right. Well, first of all, I saw a bunch of people in the chat. I saw Geek Outs. I saw Apulu Felgar. Welcome. I saw Henry's in the chat.
Yes.
I saw Glassbeard. Hello. Thanks for being here. Karaoke Night 69. Welcome, everybody. Also, Freeman's here, I guess, or whatever. I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know if he is he?
I don't know. You tell me. Anyway, uh, off to a start. Um, so, tonight we're talking about
Yeah,
something.
perspectives in art, storytelling, and other such like life
Media,
as well.
style, life,
Yeah,
Hmm.
everything.
I straight up blanked that, and I typed it not too long ago. I'm the one who sent the tweet just now, so
It's you know what? It's Vancian magic. You had it in your head, and then when you typed it out into a tweet, it was gone
that's
from
what
your
it
mind.
is. That's what
That's
it
how it
is.
works. Yeah.
Speaking of which, I'm going to retweet it. Um,
Nice.
this is going to take me forever, so if anybody
Okay.
has something that they'd like to say, this would
Well,
be a
may
good
I
time.
jump? May I jump right in front of that bus and jump right into it?
Good, saves me the trouble of pushing you.
Yes. Okay, good. All right. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for being here and hanging out with us on what is for us a Friday evening. So, we want to talk about perspective in many arenas. And what I've been thinking about, and what seems like kind of an obvious uh, way to approach this, an obvious perspective from which to approach this, is stories in whether they're in written form or movies or whatever that either the same events are told from by different narrators or viewers, or it's one long story, but different parts are told by different people.
You know what that made me think of immediately? I'm sure you have something in mind, but it made me think of one of my favorite all-time movies, which is Hero with Jet Li.
Oh, I've never seen it.
It's
I'm so
such a
sorry.
good
This is
movie.
okay. I'm slowly catching up on the stuff that we bring up that I have to see. So I'm gonna
Hmm.
really okay. Tell me about it.
Well, essentially, I'm actually pretty sure it's based on an old Chinese folk legend. It's like mythology of the. Although I think it might also be vaguely historical. So much in that in like Chinese mythology, like it like rides the line between like historical and mythological. There's so many. Anyway, I have trouble keeping it straight. Um, and I have looked into it extensively because I'm fascinated by it endlessly and I love it so much. But anyway, I won't speculate on what I think it's based on because I don't know anymore. But it is very similar to a historical tale. But it's basically the story of an assassin who was sent to kill these a a couple who had like rivaled, who had like stood up to the king or to the emperor, and basically he sits with the emperor, who then asks him to tell the story of the kill, and basically the rest of the thing is him telling the story multiple times, each time like being revealed as a liar. And then so it's like the one time he tells the story, and then the emperor goes, it's an interesting story, but based on these things, I know that you're not telling the truth. Here's what I think happened. And then it goes back through the same events but like differently, like the like same characters, different events. And then it goes back and forth like that, where he's like, okay, well, you're right, I was lying, but it didn't happen the way you said. Here's how it really happened. And then we go back and forth like that a bunch of times, and it's Really, really cool. Amazing use of color and costuming to depict different, like the different stories. Like color palettes have different versions of the story have different color palettes. It's amazing and beautiful, and I love that movie so much.
Oh, that's cool. Okay, I'll have to add that to my list, my
I
long
just
list of things that maybe I will remember and watch one day.
Mm-hmm.
It's really good. I just now remembered when you described a certain scene, when you're describing each scene, explaining that time is in a different like color spectrum
Yeah,
completely, like the costumes,
it's
the
so
scenery.
cool.
It really is. It's quite a beautiful piece.
Yeah, yeah. Every once in a while, I have to like rewatch that movie because it's just that good. I love it so much. Anyway, but that's a movie like that.
That's cool. Well, that reminds me of a movie that I haven't seen in a long time, but I saw once called Rashomon. That's
Mm-hmm.
I think it's
Huh.
God, I might be. Is it Kurosawa? I might be wrong. I know that
I feel like it is, but I don't know enough about.
I'm pretty sure the main guy is Toshiro Mifune, and they work together a lot. So maybe that's why I'm assuming it's him.
Mm.
But it's like the crux point of that movie is a fight scene that is told by different people in different ways.
Yeah,
Like that's what my mind jumped to when you brought that up.
yeah,
And it's like I saw it in in a freshman level college class that was about a class like about everything, and they're like, okay, here's the one movie that's important to see. Like it was pretty
yeah,
groundbreaking, I think, for the time. It came out in the 50s, I believe, maybe
yeah. Geek Out
60s.
says it is Kurosawa.
Good. Okay, yeah. That movie, yeah. I got to go back and watch that one again. Um but what I was also thinking about, because I just finished watching it, is Avatar: The Last Airbender,
Okay.
which doesn't do that specific mechanism. Well, it's okay. I don't remember a point where they tell the same specific series of events a bunch of times from different people, but maybe there is that. But what I mean is that it's in the long-term story of that there's the perspective of Aang and the Aang gang, and then Zuko, like, so people within it's like it's sort of like seeing different factions from within in that movie. It's
Hmm.
like I in my thoughts I was contrasting it to something like the movie Willow or Lord of the Rings, where these are clearly the good guys.
Yeah.
Like think about the guy who has a skull helmet in Willow, whatever his name is. Like that
Yeah.
guy is a bad guy, and his point of view doesn't matter at all because he's the bad guy with a big sword who's good at fighting and has a scary voice. Like,
What
whereas,
goes on here?
yeah, just in general, what goes on here? um, I mean, it's kind of an unfair comparison because it's like like a TV show to a movie. But what's one of the things that makes Avatar: The Last Airbender so good is the viewpoint moving around like that, and the groups
Yeah.
sort of coming to the same geographical location or seeing the same events and reflecting on them and stuff. And I'm sure that way of doing it, well, that's probably popular in like lots of different TV shows and
Mhm.
used to varying levels of effect. But it creates like a depth and richness to the world and people, I think, uh, that big looming stories of good and evil like Lord of the Rings don't exactly. I'm second guessing myself as I'm streaming this
Hmm.
consciousness, but it does something. I guess that's my question. Like, what effect does a shifting perspective or a repeated event with different points of view have in a story?
Hmm. I suppose it depends on the story, because like It depends on what you're trying to do, because it could have lots of things to do. In some cases, and most often, I would suspect that it's used to just build drama, right?
Right.
Like if you're like usually see in TV shows or movies when you have the perspective of the bad guy, right? Like think about in The Fifth Element, Gary Oldman's character, right? Like you see his perspective mostly to build the tension and the drama, to show that there is this antagonistic side, because most of that movie
Right.
he does not interact with the main characters at all.
That's a really good point. Yeah, they're not like showing his point of view to be like, look, this guy's human too. That's
Right.
like, no, it's just to mount. It's yeah. It's also a way to create dramatic irony, right? Or even something more
Yeah.
complicated than that. When there's a like a deep matrix of who knows what, like, and based on that, uh,
Yeah.
conflicts or suspense and stuff can happen.
Yeah. But then there's like the other one that I think is pretty commonly used, which is the showing, like the humanizing, right? Humanizing both sides type thing, which
Right.
is done to varying levels of effectiveness. Uh, yep. Um, I was joking when I said before we went live that I was going to spend this whole episode shitting on Game of Thrones, but but
It made me laugh a lot.
but but it kind of comes down to exactly that. It's too relevant right now, so I'm just going to say it. Uh, I am not a fan of that show. Uh, that's it. That's the whole. No, but basically, like, Game of Thrones has like they do their jumping around perspectives and whatever from like different characters, and that is one where it's it's kind of a unique, not unique, but it is not the common way of using that multiple perspectives thing, which is mostly just to tell multiple different stories simultaneously.
Right.
And like I mean it's not as common as as the other versions, because the other versions of that perspectives thing are usually in movies and in network television shows, the premise of which is usually like procedural, right? Law and Order does the multiple perspectives thing, but it's just actually, now that I think about it, Law and Order is very much an example of the telling multiple stories simultaneously, so never mind. That's a bad example.
Well, sort of, or they're diff. It just has to jump between the important parts of one story because the people dealing with those are different people.
Right.
Sort of. That's probably is a common thing in like procedural shows
I
in
also
general.
I also love that this episode I've already started. I started by talking about something I really loved, immediately jumped to something I can't stand, and then talked about another thing that I can't stand: Game of Thrones and procedural police dramas. Can't handle them. I hate them. I've always hated them.
I used to really like watching Law and Order. I don't know.
I think I like maybe the Mentalist, but that was a different kind of thing. It
Right,
was
like
like a
that's sort of a
that's
different,
different.
yeah,
Hmm.
still that same sort of procedural type, but
Yeah,
it's a different feel to the show. It's
I actually never really watched a whole lot of NCI, whatever they're all
yeah, and
called, because there's so many.
there's
There's too
Yeah,
many, and
so
they're all
damn
the
many.
same. They all look the same.
Um,
I know Game
go,
of Thrones was definitely like the ending of that really was like okay, well, certain parts make sense, um, and but this one part where everything like I'm gonna say without spoilers, even though probably we don't really care at this
literally
point,
nobody
but
cares anymore. That's the
no one cares. But like the Dragon Queen, like her and her dragon just burned down a whole city. Like her whole collapse into madness needed a little more time. And I've
Mhm.
said this before, like a little more time to get to that point. Nope, she just suddenly cracks, which okay, sure. And also the other thing, the whole like Jamie Lannister almost redeeming himself, and then not.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. That that whole thing, I think Game of Thrones has had too much it has had too much and enough uh time in the spotlight. So we don't need to talk about it.
True.
I was actually joking when I said that I was going to spend this whole episode shitting on Game of Thrones, but I'd much rather just not bring it up. Also, welcome Amethyst Cat Lady.
Oh, hey.
Good to see ya. Um,
Somebody. Oh, Freeman mentioned the word time, which made me think of another thing about perspectives and stories, and it's as an ingress. I don't know if that's a word. I'd use another
mhm.
specific thing that I've brought up before, which is the Earthsea series by Ursula K. Le Guin, which I love so much. And there's three. It's a trilogy that's like the first three books came out in pretty close to each other in the 60s and 70s, I think. Then there were a fourth and a fifth much later, written when Ursula K. Le Guin was older. And also, I don't remember which one it's in, but in one of them, the main character Ged, who is like a teenage wizard prodigy in the original trilogy, not the Star Wars original trilogy, but the Earthsea original trilogy. And then in one of these later like sequels, he's aged 50 or 60 years, and he's he's like an old man, and so it's the same character, but his perspective is completely different. He's like lived a life, and he has a different place in the world, a different place in society, and his understanding. I don't think the books are written in first person, but they're the type of like third person, very close to the shoulder. I think you know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean. Like there's different zoomed outnesses of third person in writing. It's like it's third person, but it follows Ged very
Right,
closely.
right.
So because of the change he's undergone in the decades, the story is very different. It's like I think of it as like a hearth story. It's very about living in a small village, and this in the context of the story, it still has incredibly. Oh, I'm getting the cool shivers. I love these books so much. It still has incredibly high stakes. They're just scaled within the story. Like it's not about an epic quest about him saving the world or like learning about dragons or learning magic or anything, but it's still as powerful and punchy a story because from his like in some ways now narrower perspective, his life is smaller in some ways. He's like retired. The conflicts that take place like therein are part of this is just good writing too. Are still like epic, you know, within the context that they take place in, which I love that. I don't I feel like I want to say it's a rare thing that a story is huge and sweeping and epic in scope, and then it's followed up by a much more focused sequel. Maybe it happens in other places. It probably does, but I can't quickly think of any. But it's something about it is so satisfying. It's like it's like the life after adventure for an adventurer. Like it's there, it exists, and it's meaningful. It's just different.
Hmm.
So that's like perspectives changing over time is an important part of being a person and growing, and I like when when that is reflected well in storytelling.
Yeah. Well, and
I
it's.
like that
Oh,
also.
go
Oh,
ahead.
sorry.
No, no, no. Go ahead.
Okay, I was just gonna say I like that when we incorporate that into our campaigns, to our D&D, our games. We actually think about what could our characters be like after like an epic, after we've put ourselves through the ringer and adventure and sacrifice. What do our lives look like after all that? You know, it's fun to think about and create that kind of thing, and then play it out if you want to or have the chance to.
Yeah. No, definitely. I think that's a really cool thing. The idea, and this is actually something that I was, um, talking about with. I want to say I was talking about this with John yesterday. We were talking about, how stories they sort of have to have a little bit of, especially if you've spent a long time building them up, they have to have a little bit of like, they can't end at the climax, at the high point. They can't end immediately after that either. They have to end like, there has to be a little bit of there has to be a little bit of a, this is what comes after, and you don't have to like full on epilogue it, right? You don't have to go like, and so went on to become what, like, you don't have to do that, but at the very least you can,
Lord of the Rings.
yeah, you can, you need to show the direction that things might go after the end of the story, right? Like you have to have that, or else things feel like they just sort of cut off abruptly. um I recently watched, all of She-Ra and the Princesses of Power, and I loved it. But my only criticism of the very last season is that it kind of, not obviously and not awkwardly, but it had a bit of an ending like that, where it just sort of, it was like, all right, well, now the main story is over, and we can get out of here. But yeah, that we didn't get an, I felt it didn't give us enough of like a here's where the story might go. It gave a little bit of that, but not enough of that. Not enough of that to be like, yeah, I don't know. I felt like we could have used just like one more episode of like calming down. We've defeated the big bad, and now it's time to chill. But yeah, I don't know. That's just an opinion. It was still very good, and I recommend
No,
you watch it.
that makes sense, and like saying it like that might be why that the I'm pretty sure it was the fifth Earthsea book was so satisfying to me. It was like an incredibly
Hmm.
drawn out version of that.
Right.
It was a
Yeah, I mean,
very like
I think there's certainly the opposite extreme too, where you're like, all right, literally nothing is happening right now. If you've
the
ever,
opposite extreme is the Midwest goodbye.
Have you ever read Stardust by Neil Gaiman?
Gosh, I don't think so.
It kind of has an ending like that, where it's not at all like the ending in the movie, but um,
Oh, that's why. Okay, yeah, I've seen that movie. I was like, why do I
right.
feel like I half have? Right. Okay.
Yeah, the book is completely different. But like the ending of that one is a little bit like that, where it's like, okay, all the important stuff sort of finished, and now it's just sort of telling me about things that don't matter and like aren't important, and then it just sort of ends after telling me a bunch of stuff that didn't matter and that I didn't care about and had
Huh.
no bearing on anything.
Oh man, we could do a Ramblemancy about like pacing or something,
Oh, we
like in
could.
stories.
We
Yeah.
super could.
Yeah.
But
Um.
but in for now, in lieu of that episode of Ramblemancy, I will just TLDR it for you and say pacing important. Anyway,
Yep. And in chat, anybody, if you want, feel free to chime in with anything you can think of, movies, books, games, stories where perspective is meaningful, or like something that stuck out to you, or like what we were talking about with Rashomon and Hero, where it's the same thing told multiple times from multiple points of view. Oh gosh, that happens in the Last Jedi. I'm already mixing up all the new Star Wars movie
I know.
oh,
Yeah.
like when
titles.
when Luke tells the story about Ben, and then later Ben
Yeah,
tells the story.
yeah, they have
Yeah.
two flashbacks from that are different from two different points of view.
Mhm.
Is there even a third one?
Huh.
I feel
I
like
don't
there is. I
I
thought
don't
there was a
think
third
so.
one
I
that
think it's
somebody's.
just two.
Okay, well, I remember the feeling I had watching that was like, oh, cool, they're doing this.
Mhm.
Like I remember recognizing that like technique or whatever, and being excited about that. Like so, it's for me at least, it's kind of an established thing that's fun to like pick out when you see it in a movie. I didn't
Yeah.
expect it in a Star Wars story.
Yeah. Um Amethyst Cat Lady says, in the anime Wolf's Rain, there are many episodes of recap. Each episode is the series thus far from a different main character's perspective. Whew. Okay, hold on. I have to unpack that for a sec. So, so periodically, or so sorry. Let me try. I'm trying to understand this. So, are there periodically there are episodes that are recap, and they're recap from a different character's perspective each time? Is that basically how it works?
It
It's like
sounds
four
it
episodes.
sounds
Okay, so that sounds like what it. Okay.
that, that sounds cool. That immediately reminds me of what we've done in home games of tabletop RPGs, having
Oh no,
different people do.
they were back to back. Oh, interesting. That's kind of cool, actually.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
Hmm.
And Geek Out says Jackie Brown does that. Also, it's a common trope in heist films and TV shows.
Mm-hmm.
It is. It's so such like a stylish heist thing. They like jump cuts. Like this person's walking here.
And just like that, the Ocean's 11 theme is stuck in my head.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mine too.
But that's another one that's like, it's like that effect is just to in that case it's just like a this is what I think, like a luxury of the medium of film being able to do that, to show a complicated plan and a bunch of machinations happening simultaneously or one after the other, right?
Yeah,
Like it would be harder to do that in a stage play, like jump from one group of people a bunch of times.
yeah. There was actually, speaking of Shira, there's also an episode like that in Shira where there's sort of like a mystery that they're all trying to like figure out, and questioning different people. We get like flashbacks of the same event, but from different people's perspectives, and it's like at different points in the event. So like people, because people like it was like they're looking back on an attack that went wrong, and they're trying to figure out how it went wrong or why it went wrong. And so different people from different parts of the operation are like telling their story and what happened to them, and you start being able to like, it's interesting because you as the audience know exactly what went wrong and what's going on, but like you you know why it is going wrong, but you don't know specifically how. And so you're watching it knowing something that the characters don't, but also starting to piece it together from all the different sides of it. It's kind of cool the way it was
Oh,
done.
that's fun. See, I like so then it's kind of like a mystery story or whatever where you're trying to figure it out, right? Like
Yeah.
I enjoy it. It's really great to watch or read something well made where you're also trying to basically solve a riddle while you're along for the story.
Yeah. Gosh, I feel like there's something I watched recently that's kind of like that, and I cannot remember what it is.
I'll, if you don't mind, real quick, I'm just say
Mm-hmm.
I just had like a flashback to I think it was like a romantic era poetry class that was all about like this. Well, part of it was the idea that like objective reality is a patchwork of like subjective experiences, right? Which is basically what that She-Ra episode you're describing is.
Yeah.
It's like to 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 see things as they are, you have to see through a bunch of different eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh gosh, that's making me okay. Think of another that story. I was gonna look this up because I never remember what it's called. Um, all right, vamp for me for a sec. I'm gonna look up a children's story.
I got you.
Thank you, Freeman.
Yeah, no. As soon as we're starting to talk about perspectives as a topic for Ramblemancy, uh, and followed up in the sentence on our little document was art. I instantly thought of one art class I took, where perspective was a type of art form, like the point
Oh yeah,
perspective.
perspective drawing. Yeah.
Perspective drawing, which I was like, oh, I loved it so much. It was so cool. It's like, it's like this. It looks something like this. You have to have like a horizon. Start with a horizon line. That is one heck of a terrible line, though. Gosh.
It's just hilly.
And then you have that's the horizon. You have your. This is where the perspective starts. This is the where the landscape starts to fade away, right? And I thought this is all I could think about all day. And so this is a road. It's right here. It starts right here. Your feet are right here, and then it gets further, or let's say it's a railroad because that's an example in the book I have, and it gets further and further away. That's what I couldn't stop thinking about this whole perspective thing all day. And this is what I did. And then I could keep going, but this is I think as far as my vamping can go because this is all I really understand about this. I haven't drawn a building forever. And then there's like that's the first point. That's 1 point perspective. There's like two, and then it goes up to three, which is looking far away and up, like a skyscraper. And it looks like the skyscraper is getting, yeah, it's crazy. Like that was one that I like at the time when I was like 22. I just didn't understand it all.
Hmm.
I didn't get I didn't get it, or I just didn't understand the text. So like, I finally think I understand it a little bit because I watched a couple of YouTube videos of someone who does it.
That stuff
Who does
is
like a demonstration.
I bet some of our more art-minded friends have a better grokking of this than
Absolutely.
we might.
I probably just made a fool of myself.
No, that looks good. I was gonna say
No.
that that drawing accurately portrays a railroad. I feel like I'm watching that silent movie of a train coming at the audience that like from the early 1900s where people like freaked out and ran from the theater.
Mm-hmm.
It would look a little better if there was like a building to give it some like more depth, a little more three-dimensional spacing. But
just keep working at it. We'll put it on the Discord.
Also, hello, John. Welcome. And John says drawing in perspective is, like many things, a matter of courage and YouTube.
Ah, yes.
yes, courage and
Two
YouTube.
ingredients to success. The thing I just looked up is a story called Seven Blind Mice, but it's based on like an old fable, I think. That's but it says typically called The Blind Men and the Elephant. And it's just the version I knew as a little kid was seven little mice like touching different parts of an elephant and saying what it was. Like the one that touched his tail said it was rope. The one that touched his foot said it was like pillars.
Oh, yeah.
Right, and they were all right based on the small part of the whole that they were experiencing. And then I think maybe in the end, God, I don't remember how it ends. Maybe I don't know if they ever really know what an elephant looks like. But that's the whole like patchwork of subjective experiences can equal reality idea.
Yeah. I wish I remembered more about this book, but I know that there's a book. I think it is. Oh gosh, I want to say it's Persian literature. and it is it's a book called My Name Is Red. Have you heard of this book?
I don't think so.
I don't think
It's
so. No.
very weird, and first of all, I was like 17 when I read it, and I did not understand it. Secondly, it was a long time ago, over a decade ago. Um, but so my recollections of it aren't very good. But it is one of the things I remember were interesting about it is that there are multiple different narrators telling the story at various points. Sometimes there is no narrator; it's just like the omniscient narrator. Um, but it features the reason the title of the book, My Name Is Red, is that at one point there's a whole sequence that is narrated by the color red. Uh,
Whoa.
Huh.
and it includes like unreliable narrators and all kinds of different, and it's very weird and hard to wrap your head around when you are 17 years old, as many things are. But yeah, that's kind of what this conversation is reminding me of, because like one of the things that I feel like with this conversation we can't really get around is the idea of the concept of metafiction.
Hmm.
Like we can't talk about perspectives in storytelling and media without talking about metafiction. Um, and so for those who may not be aware, I am about to butcher the definition of metafiction, but it is essentially, uh, John will correct me if I am wrong, but it's basically a form of storytelling that incorporates elements like fourth wall breaking and frame narratives and like all that kind of stuff. It's essentially, yeah, like the one of the key elements of metafiction is frame narratives, or just frames in general, not necessarily frame narrative, but frames. And so one example of this is, for this reference won't make sense to people who haven't gotten there yet, but the okay, John. Thanks, John. Thanks for checking me. Uh, the Ember Island Players episode of Avatar: The Last Airbender.
That's what I was thinking
Yeah,
about.
Oh man.
It's not necessarily a frame narrative, right? But it is still a frame, right? There are the different frames. There's the frame of like the stage play of their story, and then there is the actual story of them, the characters watching it, sort of just commentating on it and experiencing, seeing their story told from somebody else's perspective. And so, like, that is a perfect example of metafiction. That's what that is. Anyway, in that, I think basically we can't really get away with this conversation without talking about metafiction a little bit.
Right. I would. I was thinking about stepping foot even further outside of the fiction itself, and to talk and think about creators like the writer or the filmmakers or whatever. They have to bring their own perspective to whatever they're working on, and I think it's might be especially worth talking about things like a comic book character that is written by a bunch of different people over time, which I don't like. I'm not really familiar with any like comic book canon or like publishing history or anything, so I'm not sure if I can say much about it. Or other things like like a character who's played by a bunch of different actors, and each actor brings their own perspective to the story they're telling.
The Doctor.
What?
The Doctor.
Oh my gosh, yes,
Doctor Who.
that's a good point.
Yep. Also James Bond.
Yeah, I know James Bond was the obvious one.
James Bond is a Time Lord.
Yep.
That's what I'm saying here. That's
Oh,
what I'm
there you
saying.
go.
Yeah.
I'm trying like I those are good. I'm trying to think of examples that's not just a series of like white dudes being the same character. You know, I know the no, I know the most recent Doctor Who is a lady.
There's
Right? Is that
also
the most?
there's also now a black woman who is the Doctor as well.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. As of
Cool.
this
Is it?
most recent season.
Is
Oh
she?
man, I'm
She's
so
taking
behind.
on like the mantle in the main show.
No. It is hinted at I don't want to get into this. It's very confusing, and I don't even think
Doctor
I
Who.
understood it. But uh,
Explain all of Doctor Who to
it
me.
has been
Oh
hinted
my gosh.
that there are versions of the Doctor outside of the ones that have appeared in shows and movies. Um, well, hinted at. It has been confirmed. Uh, and that for those of you who are aware of Doctor Who, you would know that that is a significant thing because the Time Lord's cycle is supposedly only 12 regenerations. There are only supposed to be 12. Of course, there are already more than that of just this one Doctor, but it has been hinted at. It has now been confirmed that that Doctor has also gone through another 12 cycle of 12 prior to even what we know as the first Doctor. Anyway, it's a very complicated, but the point is, yes, that was a very semantic point, but that I just made.
No, that makes me think like like in the early seasons they're like, okay, let's just establish that it's 12. There's no way we'll get to that. The show will be dead long before then.
Yeah.
Like, and
No,
then they're like,
that's
oh
literally
shit,
that's literally exactly
yeah,
it.
that's definitely what happened. Oh shit, we got to figure this out.
Yeah. That like at the end of that's what they did at the end of Matt Smith's run is they're like he's like, this is it, this is my last regeneration, I'm gone for good after this, I'm actually going to die. And then at the end of that they're like, oh, but we're breaking the rules for you, we're breaking the rules. And they're like, and so now then that's when we got Capaldi, who is the first in his regeneration cycle. And this is a Doctor Who episode of Ramblemancy now. And
Good.
but now they've completely shattered it and saying not only is there a brand new regeneration cycle, but also there was a previous one. And yeah, it's yeah,
Timey
and
wimey,
possibly
wibbly wobbly.
who knows how many more before that.
Huh. Okay, that makes me think about within our like conversation perspective, the idea that when like a property or like a story or a world exists for a long time, you just got to keep zooming out and zooming out and filling in the details around the edge to like populate it.
When in doubt, zoom out. Sorry.
Oh
Whoa,
no.
is that a real thing?
Nope.
No, that's great.
It's
Zoom
nope.
out,
It is
like,
Perfect.
yeah.
That's along that with when in doubt, grenade out are
Yep.
two favorite things now of mine. I'm gonna say so if I
Mhm.
get a chance to. Goodness me. Sorry, I'm going to derail once again. I want to show you this picture that
Please.
better illustrates what I'm talking about from the perspective drawing.
Ah.
This is
Oh,
2-point perspective.
Did you just draw that?
Goodness, no.
Oh, that looks good.
Goodness, no. This was from the art class. That's all. I just wanted to further show, give a better demonstration by showing you my past work.
Good. Also, I think Amethyst Catlady makes an excellent point in the chat right now, which is fuck turfs and racists. So
Ah, good. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yep, very indeed.
yes,
well said.
absolutely. It's an excellent point you make.
From my perspective, fuck turfs and racists, and any valid perspective.
Yeah. Anyway. Yeah.
You know, I guess what I'm thinking about in terms of like different people playing the same role or writing the same character, it's like it might be less different perspectives and more like aspects of a character, which maybe this like might arguably be the same thing. But I might be I don't know. I might be like I don't want to say like I have a background in acting, but I took some acting classes in my life, and like that's probably where I'm coming from when I think about this. Like in acting specifically, when you
Didn't you major or like minor in theater?
I did major in theater. I don't want to toot my own horn though, but I like
That's
I,
literally what a degree is for, Henry.
I guess, yeah, is that right? They say the degree no, I'm not a horn tutor. Well, except I am. See, I pretend to be. Anyway, when you act, you like it is needful that what the art you're making, a huge part of it is you and your experiences and the ways you react to things and perceive stuff, right? Like, And I don't know enough about any other art form. Like obviously writers put themselves in their work, right? Because you have to. All you have are your own experiences.
Right.
But but when you do that with an established like canonical or mythological character that's been treated by a lot of other people, and then consumers like see the different versions of them, what does that do to their understanding of the character? Is that too many words to say not much?
No, I think I understand what you're saying. Um, and I've thought about that too. I mean, I'm not sure I've come to any conclusions about it. Um, so are you talking about from the perspective of readers who read a character who's been written by multiple authors, or are you talking about authors who've...
From the perspective of readers, like media consumers,
Right.
right? Like my mind jumps to Batman. There's a bunch of different Batmans we know, and they're all different.
Yeah.
Yet, okay, this is bad. Yet another just series of white guys. I got to think of an example that's not that.
Well, I think the problem here, Henry, is that we're talking about like certain. Well, never mind. I wasn't gonna. I was about to draw a connection that isn't there. Never mind. Continue.
Well, like I don't know. I'm not sure exactly what I'm trying to get at here, but like, what is it? You know what? I guess this is a little different. Like, those are different Batmans. They're not the same Batman from different perspectives. They're different characters, just with the same name, I guess.
Right.
Would you say that's right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Kind
That's
of.
not the case with Doctor Who, but
yeah, no, they're not. They're definitely like there's some allusion to continuity in like the 80s and 90s Batman films.
yeah.
Right. There's some allusion to continuity, especially because like you have uh fuck who was it? Was it Val Kilmer the first time that that Robin came in the movies? Was it?
Gosh,
I think it was. I think it was. And then but then you have the same actor playing Robin, but George Clooney playing Batman in Batman and Robin.
Oh, right. You have those weird overlaps. That happens in James Bond
Oh,
too.
yeah.
I think. Yeah.
So like yeah. So there technically I think those are all the same, supposed to be the same Batman in the same continuity, because you also have the same Alfred throughout all those movies, throughout
Right.
all of them. So like, yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
He was one of the classic Alfreds for sure.
Mhm.
Oh man.
So yeah. I don't know. I think we sort of lost got lost on
Yeah,
on that one for a
I
second
think
there.
it was getting lost in the Batman weeds. A different.
And the weeds are thick and they are many in Batman.
Yeah, you're right. Help. Get me out of this Batman world.
We just need a battling hook. I don't know
Is
if
that
that's
what
what he
it-
calls it. I don't know.
It should be. It isn't, but
There's
it should
bat
be.
hook. It's just the word of the object with a bat as a
I mean,
as a
Didn't they
Yeah.
call it a battering? I know this is not what.
prefix.
Yes,
Amethyst Cat. We have discussed Avatar: The Last Airbender. We can do it more
Yeah.
because it's
is such a good show.
show's still fresh on my mind, and it has shifts of perspective as a significant part of it, I think.
There is much relevance there. Another important one is Star Wars, because obviously, famously noted, from Anakin's perspective, the Jedi are evil. So
That's
I did.
I was
Damn it! I
thinking
knew you.
about-
I almost used that as a GIF on one of the tweets, but I was like, this is too silly. But I'm glad you bring that up because it's important.
yeah. Anyway,
Um,
that's all I had to say about Star Wars. I had literally nothing else to say there. Actually, that's not true. I have a lot to say about Star Wars in this context. The perspective of like Jedi and Sith, right? On the surface, it seems like Jedi are good, Sith are evil, except that when you really start getting into it and looking closely, I'm not gonna do that, because I hate when people do this. I'm not gonna do the thing where I'm like, but are the Jedi really the bad guys though? And fuck you. Like, no. But what I will say is that if you look at, for example, the Old Republic Jedi and that how that their legacy sort of carried into the like Clone Wars era Jedi. Um, you look at them and you can see that a lot of what makes the Jedi uh, what they are is actually just a lie. Um, because they are supposed to be these wise keepers of peace and knowledge and whatever, except quite often they are very arrogant and like this mostly in the Old Republic, where they are convinced that they are the be all end all of good, and that is exactly the thing that makes them kind of shitty a lot of the time. And sometimes, like the Old Republic Jedi, they do stuff that you're just like, the Sith kind of have a point. Like it's. They do talk. They are a little bit hypocritical sometimes, and they are like all these things. So I don't know. I think it's very interesting. Like if you really get into the weeds there, and I realized that as I started talking, the more I started going through this, the more I realized it's the kind of thing that requires way more context than I'm prepared to give anybody at this time in this small segment of time that we have. But yes.
Well, what you said made me think about how this is maybe almost a real life application of that. Like organizations that have lasted a long time that were founded with specific tenets and for specific reasons that have like endured till now, like from our current perspective looking back, they the context under which they uh, came to be has changed. So oh gosh, I don't know if I can. I'm trying to think of a good example. Like institutions that last a long time kind of warp, like what you're saying about the Jedi, right? Like without the perspective of the point in history which made their existence necessary, uh, they can become something bad, like cops. Like you know what I
I was
mean?
wondering if
Like
we were gonna get there.
yeah, I was like, that's the example. Like shit changes, everything changes, and like as you get further and further away from the genesis of anything, any organization, it has to change too, but often it like changes in a bad way, I guess. I don't know if I'm making myself clear enough here.
Yeah, I think I understand what you're saying, and yeah, well, that at a certain point, either the context or the organization itself changes, and it changes for the worse, or like the reasons that something was created, those might change, and the organization still exists. So the organization basically either has to change or go away.
Right, it's like things that were made for a specific duty that were devoted to that that disappears over time, and so they become devoted to self-sustainment
Mm-hmm.
because that's how things are.
Yeah. Hmm.
Whoa.
Yeah, when I was talking about perspective when it comes to the Jedi and the Sith, I was actually less talking about the perspective of the Jedi and versus the Sith, but rather the perspective of somebody like us looking at both of those things.
Right, I think I made like a large leap from what you were talking about, but
Mm-hmm.
it spurred something in my mind.
Yeah, and I think uh, that is more what I was trying to get at there, but where through some of the storytelling done in Star Wars: The Old Republic, the MMO, you can see you start to get a perspective on both the Jedi and the Sith that I think is very different than either one of those organizations would have about themselves and each other.
Right.
Right, like you see the point that the Sith have against the Jedi, but you also understand why the Sith are still wrong, and you can see that the Sith are evil, like the Jedi say, but you can also see the Jedi doing a lot of the same things that the Sith do.
Okay, that's
Hmm.
I see that. That's great. That's I'm jump back to Avatar. Like so, and without any specifics or spoilers, I think I saw that. I'll get to just a sec, geek outs. Uh, but seeing the perspectives of different groups within a story within a game doesn't just allow you to inhabit their perspective and jump between them, but it creates a different, not necessarily completely omniscient perspective, but a perspective that's colored by each group's understanding of each other and themselves,
Right.
which is way richer than just being
It's
inhabiting one of the perspectives.
it's one of the reasons why when I play Star Wars: The Old Republic, I play Empire side and I play the Sith warrior as a light, but like I go light side Sith warrior, and the reason I do that is because I find it is so fascinating the perspective that I'm given of that my takeaway looking at the Sith in that game is that like they have the Sith code, right? They have and that is their entire world. That nothing exists outside of that. Anything other than that is weakness to them. It is weakness, and it serves no purpose, and it is wrong. But think about it. Think about being being a Sith. Okay, to understand this, you sort of have to know the Sith code, which I do by heart, which I believe I have recited once on Ramblemancy before, and I'm going to do it again. Um, which is peace is a lie. There is only passion. Through passion, I gain strength. Through strength, I gain power. Through power, I gain victory. Through victory, my chains are broken. The force will set me free. And I think that is interesting, but they interpret it as like that you have to harness fear and anger and hatred, and you have to harness those emotions and fuel them. And that's the strongest thing, except they like and they understand that as making them do evil things, but like and that anything outside of that is weak. But really though, my takeaway during all of this is was isn't more knowledge of more techniques the thing that would make you stronger? Like if Sith are all about strength and power and all of these things, right? But wouldn't it also pay to know how to do other things, how to channel the force in different ways? And isn't that where the real strength would come in? But the Sith are very like narrow-minded, but so are the Jedi, and it's interesting to see them basically being exactly the same about each other's perspectives and totally ignoring that each has a piece of the puzzle. And I don't know, for me when I was playing through that storyline, it seemed so clear to me that both sides were so completely like they were so right but so completely wrong as well. And it was so clear to me that basically that was yeah, anyway, that's all I have to say about that. That's yeah.
Jumping back to Avatar real quick, and it has something that has to do with what you were saying, Lucas,
Mm-hmm.
but Avatar side. It's why over the course of the years since I watched Avatar, whenever it was,
Mm-hmm.
long enough now that character love of characters and have changed my perspective on those characters in a way
Mm-hmm.
that I was in trying to connect it with perspective. But here we are, Ramblemancy. This is why over the course of the years of watching Avatar, my love for Uncle Iroh has become even more so, and my not connection so much, but I don't know what the word is really, but Uncle Iroh has become more my favorite character, like at the top.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas before, I think it was like Sokka, still is though, because I love Sokka so much, but I think
Yeah,
Uncle Iroh's kind of snuck up there now, and I don't know what that has to do with. Maybe my perspective of things
Oh,
has
almost
changed
certainly,
that.
yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. I think that's great that you bring that up, Freeman, because I didn't even consider that the if you reread or whatever re-experience media a bunch of times, your perspectives change. Your entire understanding of it changes,
Mm-hmm.
and that like that's part of the joy of changing and growing as a person is re-experiencing the same stories that you know, but they have a different meaning and they elicit different enlicit. Is that's not a word?
Nope.
I
they
would. Oh,
they
you almost had me thinking it was.
well, yeah. See, that confidence is all. They they conjure forth different feelings from you as you grow and change.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, oh God, what was I had some. Oh, also Geek Outs. I did see the trailer for Bill and Ted 3. Is it? Yeah.
Oh, I have not. That's oh, I don't even think I saw the
I
first
I
two.
watched. No, me
What's wrong
neither.
with
But
me?
I watched the
Oh.
trailer. Oh, it's because there's Time Lords in that too.
Ah,
Oh.
I think, or I don't know.
I know that there's like some time travel stuff that happens or something like that. I don't know. I've heard
Yeah, I think
vague something.
in the first one, what's his name? That famous, very famous comedian who's got like longish white hair and a beard. He's the most famous comedian ever. Come on,
Huh.
oh, I hate myself.
Uh,
Uh,
I don't. I don't know.
well, okay.
Um,
Moving on.
Are you? Hold on.
Oh God, some chat save me. Oh, we can't move on. Why am I?
Thank
why is
you.
this so-
That's
Thank you,
the
George
name.
Carlin, of course.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's the name I
he
couldn't.
plays like a Time Lord in the first Bill and Ted.
Yeah.
Neither here nor there.
Like that's the thing. I could picture exactly who you were talking about, but like the name was just I was blanking on the name. Just
I think the blanking of names is infectious. Like,
Uh-huh.
right? Like that's a name that I usually can just remember, but since I can't right now, neither can you.
yeah.
huh.
What was I gonna say? Apparently, that is not the only blanking that is infectious. What were we even talking about? Oh, nope, nothing. No.
Oh no, I
No,
did
I
have.
think
Okay,
yeah.
I've got a question, Lucas. Do you um? So Star Wars: The Old Republic is a video game, which is a
Mhm.
whole other thing about perspective because depending on the game, you directly control a single character, like literally looking through their eyes, and but if you look down, you don't have feet, or over the shoulder, or you control a group of people or whatever. Um, but do you think that in that game, the like, or in Star Wars video games in general, the like Sith code is and the way that Sith are is presented in a palatable way for the games where you have the option to play as them. Whereas in the movies, this like the original trilogy, at least, the Sith are just bad guys.
I mean, I can't imagine that there isn't at least some thought that on the part of the devs that goes into that.
Yeah, like I
But
don't think it's not rewriting. It's
yeah,
go on.
but
Sorry.
that said, it is very difficult from it. It's not completely so because it is very difficult for me personally, uh, in that game or in most others, to do like an evil playthrough. So I don't know. Like I've tried to do like the dark side Sith playthrough, and I didn't get very far because I just like after a while, if you're trying to maximize your dark side point gain, you have to do some like it almost feels inconsistent. It feels like at least with the light side choices, you have a certain level of consistency that you can achieve in terms of like who your character is and like
Mhm.
who you're building, what you're building their ideals to be. But with the dark side options, like dialogue options, it just seems so random.
That's what
It's
I was
just
gonna say.
random cruelty.
Yes, it's chaotic, stupid.
Yeah.
Like that's what I've having played some of the stories in Star Wars: The Old Republic, and oh, I almost said Mass Effect, but Mass Effect is not like this.
No, it
Mass
isn't
Effect
at
does a
all.
better job.
It's
Yeah.
way better at
Um,
that. Yeah.
yeah, it's just like you're like trying to earn favor with somebody, and one of the options is like slap him in the ear. Like why? Like choke him with the Force
Right.
because I'm a bad guy. Like it's it doesn't. Yeah.
Yeah. And like there's some that are like cool and when you choose that option you're like, "Oh, yes, okay, I feel like I'm playing a Sith character who is doing Sith things." But then sometimes I'm just like, "What did that accomplish?" And it also runs counter to another dark side choice that I made a long time ago. It runs
Yeah.
completely counter to that. And yeah.
That's an interesting part of games like that have like an alignment system, because a lot of them have, like, even if it's just cosmetic, they have like incentives or rewards for going fully
Mm-hmm.
good guy or fully bad guy. But often you get a better story if it's a mix of the two of them, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And I have a thing to say this, but first I have a sarcastic comment to make, which is, oh gee, could it be that perhaps that good and evil are relative, and while there may be objective forms of morality, that nobody who is objectively evil thinks they are? Could it be that perhaps like, like that perhaps evil characters are that way not just because somebody in the writer's room decided this guy is evil, but perhaps because they have complex motivations like a person would? Anyway,
Yeah, but what about the bad guy from Care Bears? What's he called? That guy with the big purple
fuck if I know.
I have not a
cloak.
fucking clue, man.
All I know is that his major domo is named Beastly, and he says Beastly, and Beastly flies around on a bicycle helicopter. You guys,
I'll tell you
remember
what,
all
I
this?
feel like I've watched the whole thing just now, so thank you.
What is his name? Is like Mr. Evil or something. Oh man, Care Bears. I haven't seen that in like at least 2 decades and
I'll be
more.
honest with you. Uh this was not like Care Bears becoming relevant during this episode was not a thing that I saw coming at the
We're
beginning
talking
of the
about the
day.
nature of evil. Of course, we're going to talk about Care
Is it
Bears.
a show based off of the candy or something?
Was Care Bears a candy?
No, but there is Gummy Bears. There was a Gummy Bear show. That is a real thing that exists. Now that one I can talk
Yeah,
about.
that's where I'm confusing
Okay.
that. Yeah. That just brings up the song. You know the song I'm talking about, Lucas. I don't want to.
Yeah, I don't know. I
It's the
don't know the
gummy
song.
bear. I'm a gummy bear.
Ugh.
It's an animated. Mm-hmm.
Uh,
I always bring up the worst videos.
Yeah.
One of them.
Amethyst
Oh,
Cat Lady's helping you.
his name is No Heart. Thank you,
It
Emma.
was
Thank you, Emma, this cat lady. Name is
no heart.
No Heart.
Well,
that's good.
that can be an issue.
Um. I was like not focused on what you said, and then what you said just like caught up with me, and just yes, in fact, it can be an issue.
Oh man. Oof.
No, but what I was going to say, the thing that I was going to bring up before Henry, to the point that you made about a mix of both, right? The good and evil things, right? There's the Darth Bane books, by Drew Karpyshyn, I believe, who is the same. Is that the same guy? I think he wrote some of the stories from some of the Mass Effect games. I think it's Drew Karpyshyn. Anyway, I mean, I know it's Drew Karpyshyn who wrote the Darth Bane books. I just can't remember if it was him that did Mass Effect. Anyway, he wrote that the protagonist of that book is Darth Bane, and at no point are you under any illusions that he is a good guy. But he is the character you root for because he is consistent and he is motivated by things that make sense. Like you don't necessarily agree with them, but they make sense to you. They are consistent. He's not just randomly cruel. He's not just like okay, thank you, Geekouts. Yeah, Drew Karpyshyn worked on Mass Effect. Yes, the first two, I think, because I don't think he was part of the third one, or at least he was
That's
not.
what Wikipedia says. It says the first two.
Yeah. So, but anyway, yeah, in the Darth Bane books, he is very clearly not a good guy. He is not a virtuous character in any respect. However, he is the character that you root for, not just because he's the main character, but also because he is well written as a complex character who has motivations that a person might have. Now, albeit a larger than life person, but a person nonetheless. And I think in that, he is, yeah, like I think the key thing here is what you were talking about, Henry, is that it's not so much necessarily a mix of like good and evil in the character story, but more like just internal consistency with the character having
Right.
complex, motivated by goals and desires rather than just by an ideal of being evil.
Right. Right. Motivated by like identifiable tenets and goals rather than looking on the dialogue wheel and picking the one that'll give you the cool like veiny face and red eyes.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Oh, interesting. Okay. Amethyst Cat Lady says, anyway, perspectives. I see an image that makes its rounds about perspective with a number that could look like a 9 or a 6 depending on perspective. It's often used to argue that both are right if you look at their look from their perspective, except they're not, because typically the number 6 will be distinguished from a 9 in print by adding a line underneath. So while you may understand where the misunderstanding arose, only one of them is actually correct. Yeah, and I also am so this is a thing that I'm glad you brought this up because this is also a thing that I didn't know exactly how to bring it up because it wasn't relevant to the point that I was making, but it is important, which is that when I was talking about the Jedi and the Sith and like looking at it as like the whole, I'm not really into the whole like moral relativism thing, but like looking at them, mostly the thing with the Jedi and Sith, it's not so much like the they're both right if you look at them from the right point of view. That's not it at all, and that's a dangerous line of thinking that we already see some of the repercussions of in real life. Um, but at least with them, with in that situation, the Jedi and the Sith are in fact and they are ideologically opposed, and in that way when it is it I think of that as sort of an analogy for the conflict between Jedi and Sith as an analogy for uh, uh, what's the word I'm looking for? Dogmatism, right?
Yes, I was thinking about the word dogma when you're talking
Yeah,
about it too.
that's more
in
what
the
I'm
Star
thinking.
Wars.
Is that
Yeah, in the Star
they're
Wars.
both wrong because of dogma. Like
Yes,
not that like, oh well, both sides are right. I'm saying that they're both wrong because of dogma.
in
They're because they are dogmatic in their beliefs.
in
Like
the
that.
Star Wars stories that delve into like how Jedi and Sith work, it's impossible not to draw connections between like religious dogma and
Yeah.
in the real world and that. And also, I gotta say, I'm glad that Amethyst Cat Lady brought that up because like I was thinking about the whole idea of like the idea that offering different perspectives in a fictional narrative like shows you that look, walk a mile in somebody's shoes, you realize we're all human, we're all on the same page, like that's. And then like, oh, and I guess there's probably good people on both sides, like that's not the it's that's like too reductivist. It's not that
Yeah.
everybody's right, it's that like you can learn by seeing from different points of view,
Right.
but you still figure out what's right.
Yeah. Like for
Right, like
example,
there is
for
still
example,
a right.
right. Like for example, I think it's important to look at the beliefs of people that you do not agree with, because not because it's you. I think that it's that you'll find something there that will change your mind or that like or whatever, but it's important in some cases to define where you stand. Right? It's important to define where you stand and to like by contrast, right? Sometimes an important thing to do, right? To understand where the other side is coming from. This is like a thing in debate, which in debate it's important to understand both sides of the issue so that you can better represent yours, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So you can understand. Yeah, exactly. That I could go on. I could go on about this. I'm not going to right now, but yeah. But
Can you?
oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, you go ahead.
No, I was just gonna put sort of the final. All right. I will, but what I will say is that it is an important point that Amethyst Cat Lady brings up, um, the idea that while it is possible for two sides of an issue to have to be correct, it's also important to understand that not every two-sided issue has correct points on both sides.
Yes,
So, yes,
exactly.
false equivalency is a thing that happens and is often used to win bad faith arguments. Anyway, or win to, you know what I mean, draw stalemate bad faith arguments.
Uh, Let me see what Amethyst. Nope.
Yeah, this
This
is what I was trying to say.
Amethyst Cat Lady. Nope. You can understand their standpoint better, and there are times when both can be right, but it's more likely that one side has a critical flaw in what drew them to their
Yes, exactly.
conclusion. Yes. Well said.
Mm-hmm.
You got good words. Um,
The best
if I
words.
may, what?
Nothing.
Oh no, damn it, Lucas. If I may pivot a little bit to something that we mentioned really early on that I would sort of my mind's been jumping to a little bit here, and this is back to perspectives in storytelling and media in art. You mentioned in Hero, when the same story is retold in different ways, there are uses of like color or something to punctuate or signify the different
Mm-hmm.
versions of the story. Can you think of other examples of that? Like, I'm just trying to think of. I'm just thinking in like an aesthetic or artistic sense, then a stylistic sense, like where techniques are used to differentiate points of view, or um,
Um,
anything like that.
Flashbacks are often done in black and white
Yes,
Mhm.
good
or
point. And
sepia or.
dream sequences are like hazy.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
They use a
Yeah.
worse camera for dream sequences.
Yeah. It's
They use the
handheld and everything.
Logitech C920 to film those.
Yeah, exactly. Speaking of camera, don't look at me for a sec. I'm gonna enable HD to try to make me less blurry. Okay.
Oh gosh, that's a mood, geek outs. That is a mood. Uh,
Yep. I'm trying to think. Like, do you know? Do you, Lucas? Do you remember parts in Jedi Outcast where you control a little mouse droid
mm-hmm.
and you drive around and do stuff?
Yep.
Does anything about the graphics change when you do that? I can't
Yeah, you
remember.
get the like the hologram lines.
Hmm.
Right. See,
Yeah.
that's like, so this is cool. These are like framing devices though. That
Mm-hmm.
they're like conventions, and they're very clear in visual mediums like video games and shows, but it would be like the font changing in a book when there's a different speaker, or not even a different
Mhm.
speaker, but when a different
Ooh,
narrator.
I thought of a more subtle one too,
Yeah.
a very subtle one, but like everybody has experienced it, and everybody recognizes it when when it happens,
Hmm.
which is that technique that in film and TV in basically in film media, um, that technique where the camera angle indicates that somebody is watching, somebody in
Oh
world is
yeah.
watching what is happening.
Oh my
Hmm.
gosh, that's a good point.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that just made me think. Is it Zam West? No, is Zam Wessel like in Attack of the Clones looking through binoculars at some point, and it's like the diddle-diddle-diddle-diddle.
Probably.
That's a non-subtle version of that, if
Yeah.
that happens. Or maybe I'm
They
thinking of
always
Tango
use
Fett.
that in like in thrillers and like scary movies too.
Yeah.
It's like, oh,
Right.
someone's watching. You just know. Oh gosh.
Yeah,
Oh
and
no.
Yeah.
sometimes it's a fake out. Sometimes they do it
Yeah.
just, and it's just where the camera angle is, and nobody's watching them. But sometimes,
Mhm. I love
Ripple
that too.
transition for dream sequences flashbacks. Yeah, doodaloo, doodaloo,
oh
doodaloo.
yeah,
Mhm.
And then fisheye lens is often used immediately after body switches or transformations. Or I feel like if it's
Hmm.
following like a monster through the woods, it's like
yep.
Mhm.
weird lens and all the branches and stuff.
Also, predator vision. Don't
Oh
forget
yeah,
predator
predator
vision.
vision.
Yes.
Mhm.
See, this is fun. Like this the whole the idea of perspective is like mm, maybe more prevalent in like film and TV, because the whole thing is what you see is completely based on where you pick to put the camera, you know?
Yeah, and actually, that's what Geekaz was just saying too, which is also camera angles affects the tone of the film, i.e., corner, top, or bottom angles on ghost hunter shows and horror movies. Yeah, and also a famous one, which is E.T. I cannot stand. I hate that movie, but E.T. is shot from the perspective of a child. Like it is shot physically, like the camera is at the angle of like a child.
Like most all of it,
Mm-hmm.
or the ones that are
No,
from
all
his
of it,
point of view.
all of
Oh
it,
man,
the
I
whole
haven't seen
movie.
it. You don't like ET?
No, I hate that movie.
It scared me. It creeped me out a lot as a kid.
Yeah.
I will say I haven't seen it in
Hmm.
years.
I haven't seen. Yeah, it's been a
Um,
while.
Also, hello, Chaotic Good 23.
Yeah,
Welcome.
hi.
Ah, you made it.
You made it.
Hello.
And it
That's
is
You
not
made it.
quite the end of the episode, so welcome.
Yeah.
They say, what about the evil demon perspective in Evil Dead 2? I think that is maybe partially what I was thinking of, like
Yeah.
rushing through the
Yeah,
forest with all the
yeah.
weird smoke and branches and shit. It's like clearly monstrous, you know?
And I
Mhm.
think that does that happen a little bit in the ritual as well, or is that from the perspective of the people running through the woods? I don't think we see anything until later on.
I can't remember.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's just from from the one guy's perspective. All he's seeing is flashbacks, but it's like a weird
Found
version.
footage films. Sorry.
Oh yeah. No,
Right.
no worries.
Is that what you were talking? Is that what you were talking about? Is that a found footage film?
I don't know.
The ritual is not.
Okay.
I don't. Yeah, okay.
I haven't
the,
seen
the
it.
one you
I didn't
just
know.
watched that I watched recently for a minute.
Yeah,
Guys in Sweden.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but like
exactly.
Blair Witch and Paranormal
Yeah.
Activity, like the found footage films,
Yeah.
those are, uh,
Huh.
yeah,
Those are that's a framing device that's trying to get rid of the separation between like viewer and
it's
content.
very interesting. I think I don't like those movies, but
I do. Blair Witch Project scares me so much.
That's the next one I
it's
could
just
see.
it's
Yeah.
it's literally just the last like 5 minutes of the movie. The rest of it is basically just a bunch of stupid people arguing in the woods.
No. That part's scary too. I know
Nope.
that you don't have to agree with that. I love that movie and it scares me so bad.
Mhm.
I just have to say the ritual has a pretty. I like the monster concept, or not monster. I say monster. The concept behind that design, though, for the god.
Yeah, that movie's cool.
I liked it.
Chaotic Good
It's
23 says, right, like how many people keep filming when they're being chased through the woods? Fucking exactly.
Yeah,
true.
they're called journalists. They want to get it at any cost.
Um,
Oh gosh, I had this is so rich for this perspective. I can't remember what I was going to bring up.
Sorry, Freeman, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just saw that and I thought
what
it was
was I
funny.
saying though? Yeah, I don't know. Was I talking about the style in which they're running through the woods? I don't know. It's pretty much. I thought that maybe there was that perspective in that movie, but there of the thing chasing them, but it's not. It's them seeing weird things happening. I still liked it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to go back
I'm
to
not
this
sure
idea
why.
of the found footage films and their as a framing device because I think that's really interesting, right? The idea of it's metafiction in a weird way where the fourth wall has a window in it, right? Like the fourth wall has a window in it where the people in
Yeah.
the story are aware that it is a story. It is a film anyway. They're aware that it's a film because they're the ones filming it. But on
Right.
another level, they are not aware because on the level of it being fiction and not an actual real thing, but we, the audience, are watching it as if it is not fiction.
Kind of like is
It's
that how The
presented to us
Descent
as
is?
not fiction.
Right, and that even includes I think the marketing campaign for the Blair Witch Project was like trying to make it seem like
Right.
it wasn't fiction, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like so that that's a yeah that's
Yeah.
a special case. Like that they kind of like I know other movies have done that since then, but it's like fool me once, shame on you. Like
Yeah.
especially now with the internet, it's if you search for it, it's easier. Well, God, I hope it's true that it's easier to not be fooled, but that's maybe not necessarily the case.
Yeah. Geekouts, to respond to some of the things that you are saying, I have not seen The Sacrament, but I may have to add it to my list. And also, he said, I went to the theater to see Blair Witch. Everyone was pissed because the movie sucked and it was a fake. Yeah, it did. Thank you. Let's see. Amethyst Cat Lady said, my CIA agent heard the Care Bear talk and just recommended a Care Bear Pride shirt for me. Send help. Grabby hands.
Do you mean send help or send shirt?
Oh gosh. Okay. Chaotic 23 says right. There's no suspension of disbelief. It's like a documentary. Yes, exactly. And
Hmm.
it's interesting because I think about this in terms of Paranormal Activity, right? The first one. Um, this is another interesting avenue, like to discuss. Like, this isn't quite like the 4D theater experience, but it is close, right? 4D has like the effects, has like wind that will blow at you and like and whatever and like that kind of stuff, like sound, like anyway. But this, when we went to see it in the theater, um, when we went to see Paranormal Activity in the theater, they I that movie terrified me for months afterwards. Hell, I would even go so far as to say like years afterwards. But I saw it again several years later, not in the theater, and it I was scary in the moment when I was watching it, and then afterwards I was completely fine. It like did not stick with me. Something about that theater experience, probably the collective audience experience of that thing building up that fear, I think probably is what made that stick with me for so long. And it's very interesting to think about the audience being made part of the
Mm.
experience of the fiction, right? Like the audience basically were leveraged as a tool to enhance the experience, which I think is really interesting.
There's a
I
lot of
think.
stuff like that
Yeah.
in live theater too,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Hmm. I was just gonna say that, but there's a word for it too, and I can't remember. And there's also a word for, I believe, a word for like directors who use that as a tool to get that reaction.
Mm-hmm.
Oh gosh, I remember what I was gonna bring up.
Uh huh.
Fucking Battlefield Earth.
Huh.
It's so bad. All the camera angles are
What are you
like
talking
a
about? John
hand.
Travolta's in it. How could it be bad? I'm just kidding.
Well, I mean, he's the best part, but all the angles are like a handful of
Hmm.
degrees off level. Like it's
Hmm.
almost like whoever the cinematographer or the director or whatever wanted viewers to be physically ill, not just because of the content and the inane story and weird acting and lighting, but also the angle that you're
The
looking at the
angles.
action. That movie's so bad, but it's worth a watch.
I don't know.
Treat
My
yourself.
my
Watch Battlefield
my
Earth once.
I don't. My equilibrium doesn't need that.
Kat
All
says, I've told the story where my dad laughed during a slasher flick and made the entire theater start laughing.
I think I heard. I think I did hear that.
Oh gosh. Yeah. Um
I want to. Chaotic Good 22 says, does literature told from a first-person perspective have the same effect? Does I went and did this on this day, etc., make it more real than once upon a time these people did these things?
hmm.
That's. It depends if it's like. I know that there have been like popular books that have been presented as true autobiographical accounts that like turned out they weren't.
Mhm.
I feel like there was one called A Million Little Pieces or something
hmm.
about somebody's like drug addiction experiences, and then it turned out to be made up. People were just pissed off. That's the effect that had. Like,
Oh, that reminds me. This is semi-related. It is still on the same topic of like of what Chaotic Good 23 brought up. But um have you heard of the book 3 Cups of Tea?
gosh, I think I've heard of it. I don't know what
It
it
is
is.
ostensibly a factual account of a man who went into, I want to say, Tibet, and built schools there. Um, and the whole book is written by like a journalist who followed along with him and like documented the experience. And like a few years ago, it was on the reading list for one of my classes, my freshman year in college. Or no, it was it was on the reading list for the next class, for the next year's class. It was like the summer reading for the freshman class after mine. Um, and they debated pulling it. I think they might have even done it. They might have even actually pulled the book and replaced it because, as it turns out, they found out that it came out that like it was a misrepresentation of like what the guy actually accomplished in terms of like the schools that got built.
Hmm.
And that he actually didn't build as many as he said he didn't raise as much money as he said he did. But the interesting thing that I remember, because I did read the book in a different class the year before it was supposed to be summer reading, and in the introductory like section, the author has a note and basically has this very interesting, kind of cryptic, but also very telling introductory thing where he says, "Listen, as a journalist, it's my job. As journalists, it is our job to report the truth, to report the things that happened. But essentially, and I'm paraphrasing here, he said that essentially sometimes the truth goes beyond the facts of what occurred, and at that point, it's incumbent upon somebody to choose whether they're going to be the journalist or whether they're going to report the truth, right?" And so it was very interesting. It was very weird and cryptic. And at the time, I didn't understand it. And the year after that, like all this other stuff came out about that book, and it was really interesting to me because what I read it as was this journalist telling a story about the man and not about what he did. That the important thing was the man, and that at some point he lost it. Like the journalist lost his objectivity telling the story and realized that he was no longer reporting a story like journalism. He was
Huh.
telling the story of a person.
Hmm.
And I think,
Interesting.
yeah. And I'm not sure who, like, I don't know enough about the situation to really make any value judgments on any of this. I don't know enough about it to do that. But I thought it was interesting, and it certainly speaks to the idea of perspective and objectivity. Like,
Right.
it's that old, like, the old adage that writers lie to tell the truth, right?
Yeah.
That kind of thing. It sort of speaks to that, which I think is interesting.
This all makes me think that like the idea of objective truth or even recording history has changed over time. Like dudes like is it Herodotus who was like a Roman historian or these Roman and
Greek,
Greek
I think.
like they were like historians, but it was so much hearsay, like, and then things like um, Marco Polo
Mm-hmm.
and the Travels of Sir John Mandeville, which is another weird like late medieval text about a guy going somewhere. Like nobody know like nowadays it's hard to tell how much those are rooted in fact. And from what I learned, at least, the sense of people at the time was that it didn't nobody cared if it was true or not. You know, like
Yeah.
they like the bounds between and like sort of makes sense in a society that would be like way more um superstitious, I guess, basically, right? Like think about like Europe in the 1400s or whatever. Like they didn't this story about what is in the rest of the world. A guy comes back and says he went there. Like they didn't care whether it was literally true or not. It was just like it would always just be a story to them. I guess I don't know. I don't,
Yeah.
so the like the real like the epistemological, if I'm using that word right, like relationship between truth and fiction was different at different times. I think to like to some people.
Yeah. Yeah. Hmm. That's really that's really interesting.
It is. It's like I'm not sure I fully. This is what just like what I was taught and what I learned from researching these. Mostly, I'm talking about like medieval European texts. They're like when modern scholars try to parse out the truth, it's hard because nobody cared.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if
Yeah.
it's the case. Like Ibn Battuta was another like in that vein of medieval world travelers, but I think he was from the Middle East somewhere. I think he was Muslim, and I don't know if his stories are as like fantastical and fake. I think they are. I think he rode an eagle, like, but he like was probably a real guy.
Mm-hmm.
It's so the farther back you go, it feels like it's harder.
Like
Not just
Rasputin.
because, yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, that's not even that far back, and who knows the truth of Rasputin's death now?
It's probably a lich.
Oh well, obviously,
Most definitely.
Yeah.
yeah, that's the right answer.
Um. Well, we are at the end of our time.
Oh geez, yep, we are.
In fact, a little bit beyond the end of our time. Um. Well, I'm sure this would be the time when I would say something profound, but I sort of feel like we've spent this whole time doing that. So, but also spent a fair bit of time not doing that, which is also important. Um, yeah. Um, Henry, if you wouldn't mind being thrown under the bus yet again, and
Oh
taking
yeah.
us out.
Thank you so much for hanging out with us tonight, guys. Everybody. Here's our quick spiel of the
Game of
night.
Wait,
Thrones can
yeah,
suck it.
yeah.
Yeah,
Geek Outs wrote my outro for me, which is
that's
Game of Thrones can suck it. Mic drop. I can't drop the mic. It's on an arm. It's right here. But I'll mime it.
Can't drop that. It's a headset and a mic.
just mic throw.
Mic, yeah.
Doesn't have the same effect.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
Hey everybody, we've got a coffee, a Patreon, the stuff we're working on for Patreon this week. I'm really excited about. So check it out if you.
That's right. We're doing
Do
this week
dare.
is tabletop tool chest, and this week we're gonna be doing a whole edition on modern story hooks.
Modern adventure hooks. Yeah,
Modern adventure hooks. Yeah.
I've already written 4. I'm so excited. We have a gosh. Oh, you can watch our TTRPG shows powered by the Cipher System game by Monty Cook Games. You can, in addition to watching it live on Wednesdays at 6 p.m. Pacific, you can catch up on YouTube or in podcast form, whichever is.
That's not.
Nope,
The
that's.
command.
I keep doing that. It's the website's called Anchor. I'm so sorry. We have a Discord. Come hang out with us in Discord. Talk about whatever the heck you want. We have a little merch shop. Who's wearing the shirt? Lucas? You
Me.
the
I
shirt?
got it. I got it. It's right here.
Got the shirt. We got that cool Infinite Horizon shirt with art by Caitlin Bruder, our good friend and player in the game. There's also
Absolutely.
a mug. Looks like this.
I'll just wear my character hat.
And thank you for being here with us and supporting us, but also, as the social media hubbub seems to be dying down about it, Black Lives Matter. Don't forget that. Help in whatever ways you can. It's also Pride Month. We work for a better world, I guess, and as we all try to figure out how to do that. And yeah.
Geek Outs, to answer your question, yes, this shirt is very soft.
It is. Oh, I got mine too. I washed it. I haven't put it on yet.
Yes.
Ooh, I'm so excited. It doesn't
You're
smell
in
like
for a
vinegar anymore.
surprise.
Nice. Yeah, it is very soft. Quality merch, exactly. All right. Ooh, that's a good idea. That's a good point. Catacode23 says, please donate vegan meat substitutes to the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone. Also, farming advice. Yep.
Chaz.
Good call. All right. Well, we are gonna go. Everybody, take care of yourselves and each other. We'll see you. Oh, important information. I almost forgot. Next week, we will not be streaming anything.
Oh yeah. I don't...
We are gonna be going completely dark. But tomorrow evening, probably at 6 p.m. Pacific. We really haven't discussed this. 6 p.m. Pacific. I'm saying it right now. I'm deciding it right now. John and I will be playing a game called Desolate. It is a survival horror game. Emphasis on the survival, less emphasis on the with. I would say it's survival with horror elements. And last time John and I played it together, we spent a solid 45 minutes just talking in Russian accents to each other. Like, at a certain point, we stopped even doing a bit. It stopped being a bit. We were just communicating in Russian accents. So
sometimes you get
that's
stuck
awesome.
like that. I kind of like it. But,
yeah.
My partner hates it.
It also
at me, but I love getting
it also
stuck
makes
in
my
that.
tongue feel really weird because I'm having to like hold it in a certain way in order to get the right inflections. And anyway, so that's what John and I will be doing tomorrow.
Oh man, that's great.
Well, that's
Not
awesome.
so necessarily the Russian accents, but maybe. You never know. But we'll be playing Desolate tomorrow, right here. So yeah, that's what we'll be doing. Join us. I almost said that join us or die, but then I was like, that's don't do that. Don't. It's
No.
not a. You don't have to choose between those things. There are many more options.
It's not that. It's not that important.
It's really not. There are other options on the table. Geek Out says hydrate or die straight. I love it.
Now that's that one just true.
All right. We are for real gonna go. We'll see you hopefully tomorrow. If not, we'll see you the week after next. And we'll see you the next time you decide to come roll with us. Good night and good zone, everybody. Thanks for being here.
Good night, y'all.